Hello, everyone. Good morning. Disrespect will happen. You can be kind, hardworking, quiet, confident, and still someone will test you. The real question is not why they did it. When someone disrespects you, the very first instinct is emotional. Your heart rate spikes, your thoughts race, and your body prepares to defend itself. You feel the urge to respond immediately, to correct them, confront them, or prove them wrong. That reaction is human. But here's the truth most people don't realize. The moment you react emotionally, you lose control of the situation. Your words become driven by anger instead of intention, and once that happens, you're no longer responding from strength, you're reacting from impulse. Emotional reactions feel powerful in the moment, but they are short-lived and often followed by regret. Think about the times you snapped back at someone, sent a message too quickly, or raised your voice. Did it actually earn you respect? Or did it escalate the situation, drain your energy, and leave you replaying the moment later, wishing you had handled it differently? Reacting emotionally doesn't make you look confident. It makes you look predictable. And predictability is power handed to the other person. When you pause instead of reacting, something powerful happens. You interrupt the emotional cycle. You give your brain time to catch up with your feelings. That pause, just a few seconds, is where your power lives. Silence in that moment isn't weakness, it's restraint. And restraint is a sign of emotional intelligence. People who are truly confident don't rush to defend themselves. They choose their response carefully because they know their self-worth doesn't depend on winning every exchange. Reacting emotionally also sends an unspoken message: you can control how I feel. And once someone realizes they can push your buttons, they often will. Staying calm removes that leverage. It shifts the dynamic. Suddenly, they're the one exposed, and you're the one grounded. Calm energy unsettles disrespectful behavior because it doesn't give it fuel. Fire dies without oxygen, and disrespect dies without reaction. This doesn't mean you ignore disrespect or suppress your feelings. It means you delay your response until you can speak from clarity instead of anger. There's a huge difference between responding and reacting. A response is intentional, measured, and aligned with your values. A reaction is emotional, impulsive, and often driven by ego. One builds respect, the other erodes it. When you choose not to react emotionally, you're also protecting your own peace. Anger is exhausting. It lingers in your body long after the moment has passed. By pausing, you refuse to let someone else's behavior dictate your mental state. You're choosing self-control over temporary relief, and self-control is one of the strongest forms of confidence there is. People often think strength looks loud. It doesn't. Strength looks calm under pressure. Strength looks like someone who can hear something disrespectful and still remain centered. That kind of presence commands attention without demanding it. It sends a clear message: I'm not easily shaken. In that pause, you give yourself options. You can choose to address the issue later. You can set a boundary calmly, you can disengage completely, or you can decide the comment isn't worth your energy at all. But you only get those options if you don't react emotionally in the moment. So remember this: the goal isn't to win the argument. The goal is to keep your power. And your power is never found in an emotional reaction. It's found in the pause, in the calm, and in the choice to respond with intention instead of impulse. Expand 200 to 600 words. When someone disrespects you, one of the most damaging things you can do is chase validation, asking them to understand you, admit they were wrong, or apologize so you can feel whole again. It's tempting because we're wired to want fairness and acknowledgement. We want the other person to see our side and say, "You're right." But the moment you seek validation from someone who has already disrespected you, you shift the power dynamic against yourself. Here's why. Validation given under pressure is rarely sincere. When you push someone to respect you or apologize, you're not receiving respect, you're requesting permission to feel worthy. And your worth was never something they had the authority to grant in the first place. Respect that has to be begged for is not respect, it's compliance, and even that is temporary. When you chase validation, you also send an unspoken message: I need your approval to feel okay. That message weakens your position, even if your argument is completely valid. People who lack respect for you are unlikely to suddenly develop it because you explained yourself better or spoke longer. In fact, over-explaining often has the opposite effect. It signals insecurity, and insecurity invites further disrespect. There's also an emotional cost. When you seek validation from the wrong person, you stay mentally attached to their response. You wait. You replay conversations. You analyze their tone, their silence, their words. And while you're doing that, they've already moved on. You're carrying the weight they're not. That imbalance drains your energy and keeps you stuck. An apology, when it comes, should be freely given, not extracted. A forced apology doesn't heal anything. It doesn't restore dignity or trust. It might give you momentary satisfaction, but deep down, you know it wasn't genuine. Real closure doesn't come from someone else saying the right words. It comes from you deciding you don't need them to. This doesn't mean you ignore disrespect or accept poor treatment. It means you stop trying to convince people of your value. Your standards speak louder than explanations ever could. When someone crosses a line and you calmly state your boundary or remove your presence altogether, you communicate self-respect without saying a word. And self-respect is far more powerful than validation. There's a quiet confidence in not needing to be understood by everyone. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Not everyone deserves a seat at the table where your self-worth is decided. When you stop chasing validation, you take that table back. Think about the most grounded people you know. They don't argue for their worth. They don't demand apologies to feel whole. They move with certainty. If someone disrespects them, they adjust access, not their self-esteem. That's not arrogance. That's emotional maturity. Chasing validation also keeps you stuck in the past. You focus on what should have happened instead of what you can control now. You can't force someone to grow, reflect, or care, but you can choose how much influence they have over you. Letting go of the need for validation is choosing peace over pride. The truth is, when someone disrespects you, their behavior already told you something important. It told you who they are in that moment and what they're capable of. You don't need a follow-up conversation to confirm it. You don't need an apology to justify your feelings. You're allowed to trust your experience. So don't chase validation. Don't chase apologies. Don't chase understanding from someone who chose disrespect. Stand firm in who you are. Your worth is not up for debate, and the strongest position you can ever take is knowing that without needing anyone else to agree. Expand 300 to 600 words. When someone disrespects you, the temptation to get even can be overwhelming. Your mind starts crafting the perfect comeback. You imagine saying something sharper, louder, or more cutting, something that will hurt them the way they hurt you. In that moment, retaliation feels like strength. It feels like justice. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The fastest way to lose your self-respect is to abandon your values just to win a moment. Disrespecting someone back might feel satisfying in the short term, but it comes at a hidden cost. The cost is you. When you lower yourself to match someone else's behavior, you're no longer acting from confidence, you're reacting from ego. And ego-driven behavior is always expensive. It pulls you out of alignment with who you want to be and replaces dignity with drama. The real damage isn't what they think of you afterward. It's what you think of yourself. Long after the moment passes, you remember how you showed up. You remember the tone you used, the words you chose, and whether that version of you aligns with your values. Regret doesn't come from staying calm. It comes from crossing your own boundaries. There's also a false belief that retaliation earns respect. It doesn't. It might earn fear, silence, or temporary compliance, but respect rooted in intimidation or pettiness is fragile. It disappears the moment you're not around. True respect comes from consistency, self-control, and standards, things that don't require you to insult, humiliate, or outdo someone else. When you disrespect someone back, you validate their behavior. You confirm that the situation was worth losing your composure over. You turn a single act of disrespect into a shared mess, where the focus shifts from their behavior to yours. Suddenly, the original issue is blurred, and accountability disappears. Chaos loves company, and retaliation invites it in. Staying grounded doesn't mean you're passive. It means you're intentional. It means you understand that not every provocation deserves a response, and not every battle deserves your energy. Power isn't proven by how loudly you react, it's proven by how well you regulate yourself under pressure. There's a quiet authority in restraint. When you don't match disrespect with disrespect, you create contrast. That contrast speaks volumes. It tells everyone watching, including the other person, that you operate from a higher standard. You don't need to announce it. Your behavior does the talking. It's also important to understand that revenge keeps you emotionally tied to the person who disrespected you. As long as you're trying to win, you're still playing their game. And their game is chaos, ego, and reaction. Walking away with your dignity intact is not losing, it's opting out. Think about moments when you've stayed calm while someone else lost control. Those moments feel different. There's clarity, there's strength. You walk away lighter, not heavier. That's because you didn't betray yourself to satisfy your anger. Your character is not defined by how others treat you, it's defined by how you respond when treated poorly. Anyone can lash out. Anyone can insult back. That requires no discipline. What requires discipline is choosing dignity when ego demands revenge. You don't need to prove you're read by being cruel. You prove it by staying composed. You prove it by not allowing someone else's lack of respect to dictate your behavior. When you refuse to disrespect yourself for the sake of revenge, you protect something far more valuable than pride. You protect your integrity, and integrity lasts longer than any comeback ever will. Expand 400 to 600 words. When someone disrespects you, one of the most damaging reactions is to immediately assume it means something about your worth. The mind is quick to turn external behavior into an internal verdict. You replay the moment and ask yourself what you did wrong, what you lack, or why you weren't enough to be treated better. This habit is subtle, but it's powerful, and if left unchecked, it can slowly erode your confidence. The truth is, disrespect is rarely a reflection of the person receiving it. It is far more often a reflection of the person giving it. People project their stress, insecurity, fear, and unresolved pain onto others. When someone is struggling internally, they look outward for relief, and disrespect becomes an outlet. Taking their behavior personally means you're accepting responsibility for emotions and issues that aren't yours to carry. When you internalize disrespect, you give it permanence. A single moment turns into a story you tell yourself about who you are. One comment becomes evidence, one tone becomes a label. Over time, this creates self-doubt, even if the disrespect was unjustified. You start shrinking, second-guessing yourself, and adjusting your behavior, not because you did something wrong, but because you absorbed something that didn't belong to you. Not taking it personally doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. It means recognizing that hurt doesn't automatically equal truth. You can acknowledge the feeling without attaching it to your identity. Emotions are information, not conclusions. They tell you something happened, but they don't define what it means about you. When you detach your self-worth from someone else's behavior, you regain control. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What's going on with them?" That shift changes everything. It allows you to see disrespect with clarity instead of confusion. Clarity creates calm, and calm creates power. It's also important to understand that confident, capable, and kind people are often disrespected, not because they are weak, but because they trigger insecurity in others. Someone else's discomfort with your boundaries, growth, or presence can show up as dismissiveness or hostility. Internalizing that response only dims what makes you strong. Taking things personally also keeps you emotionally tied to the incident. You replay it, you rehearse different responses, you imagine what you should have said. Meanwhile, the person who caused it has likely moved on. Letting go is not denial, it's choosing not to suffer twice. Detachment is a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice. It starts with awareness. When you notice yourself spiraling into self-blame, pause and remind yourself, this behavior is information about them, not a verdict about me. That reminder creates space between the event and your identity. When you stop taking disrespect personally, you also stop giving it power over your future behavior. You don't shrink. You don't overcorrect. You don't abandon your authenticity to avoid being hurt again. You remain rooted in who you are, regardless of how others show up. Your value is not determined in moments of disrespect. It was established long before that interaction and remains intact after it. People may misunderstand you, mistreat you, or project onto you, but none of that has the authority to define you unless you allow it to. The strongest form of confidence is not needing every interaction to validate you. It's knowing who you are well enough that someone else's behavior doesn't rewrite your story. When you stop taking disrespect personally, you protect your self-worth, preserve your peace, and move through the world with a steadiness that no insult can shake. Expand 500 to 600 words. When someone disrespects you once, it may be a mistake, a bad day, or a moment of poor judgment. But when disrespect becomes a pattern and you continue to stay, tolerate, and explain it away, something deeper happens. You begin teaching people how to treat you. Repeated disrespect is not an accident. It's a signal, and ignoring that signal comes at a high personal cost. Many people stay in environments where they are repeatedly disrespected because they hope things will change. They tell themselves to be patient, understanding, or strong. They fear being seen as dramatic, sensitive, or difficult. Others stay because of loyalty, history, fear of conflict, or fear of loss. But endurance is often mistaken for strength, when in reality, staying silent in the face of repeated disrespect slowly chips away at self-respect. Every time you allow someone to cross your boundaries without consequence, you send a message, even if you never say a word. That message is not what you intend, but it's what's received. This is acceptable. Over time, the behavior escalates, not improves. Disrespect rarely corrects itself. It grows where it is tolerated. Staying in a space where you are consistently disrespected also affects how you see yourself. You start questioning your instincts. You minimize your feelings. You normalize behavior that once would have felt unacceptable. This internal shift is dangerous because it lowers your standards without you realizing it. You don't just lose respect from others, you begin losing it from yourself. Setting boundaries doesn't always mean confrontation. Sometimes it means distance. Sometimes it means changing how much access someone has to you. Sometimes it means walking away entirely. Distance is not punishment, it's protection. It's a clear statement that your well-being matters more than maintaining a connection that harms you. There's a common fear that walking away means losing, failing, or giving up. But the opposite is true. Choosing not to stay where you are disrespected is an act of self-trust. It means you believe you deserve better, even if better is unknown or uncomfortable. Growth often requires leaving spaces that no longer honor who you are becoming. Repeated disrespect also drains your emotional energy. You're constantly on edge, anticipating the next comment, the next dismissal, the next slight. Living in that state keeps your nervous system activated and your mind preoccupied. Peace becomes impossible when you are always bracing for impact. Removing yourself from that environment is not weakness, it's self-preservation. It's important to understand that boundaries don't require the other person's agreement. Someone can disagree with your boundary and still be subject to it. You don't need them to understand why you're stepping back. You don't need them to validate your decision. The moment you realize a situation consistently costs you your peace, you have enough information to act. Walking away can feel lonely at first. There may be guilt, doubt, or second-guessing. That's normal. But over time, clarity replaces confusion. You begin to feel lighter, your confidence returns, you remember what it feels like to be respected, not because you demanded it, but because you chose environments and relationships that naturally offer it. You are not obligated to stay where you are diminished. Familiarity is not a reason to tolerate disrespect. History is not a justification for harm. Loyalty should never require self-betrayal. When you stop staying where you are repeatedly disrespected, you reclaim your power. You send the clearest message possible, not just to others, but to yourself: I matter. And that decision changes how you move through every relationship that follows. Expand 600 to 600 words. I want to pause you gently here because this part matters. There is no sixth in the original topic. The framework is 5 things, and we've already fully expanded all 5. So before I invent something that breaks the structure, here are your clean options. Pick what you want and I'll deliver it at the same level. Option 1, Create a powerful closing, conclusion, 600 words that ties all five together like a keynote finale. Option 2, add a bonus principle, clearly labeled as one final rule or the most important truth, so it enhances, not confuses, the original five. Option 3, rewrite any one of the five in a stronger, more intense keynote style, more commanding, stage-ready. Option 4, turn everything into a full keynote speech with opening hook plus transitions plus ending, 10 to 12 minutes. Tell me which option you want, just the number, and I'll continue seamlessly.